Good morning, everyone. We have started the webinar. People are still joining, and we wait for a few seconds until all the people are here, and we will start with the presentation. So welcome, everyone. Okay, so we are going to start again. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year to all of you. Let's see if things improve during this year and we can organize more physical meetings in this project and other activities. So welcome to this second informative webinar of about the first open call of our project EUHubs4Data, the European Federation of Data-Driven Innovation Hubs. Again, this is the second informative webinar. We organized a first session of this webinar last December, and basically we will follow today the same pattern, the same approach. The idea is to go through the application process to explain all of you the details about the application, the criteria to evaluate the proposals and the experiments. But we will also take advantage to present briefly the project, to provide some context to all of you about what we are looking for, where we are expecting, and what we are offering. Okay. My name is Daniel Alonso, and I am project manager in ITI, Research and Technology Center in Valencia, in Spain, and I am the coordinator of the project. And together with my colleague Jorge from Zavala Innovation Consulting, who is leading the open call process in the project, we will go through the agenda that you can see in this slide. We also come with the support from Martina from BDBA in the background, and she will also be moderating the chat. So the agenda, as you can see here, I will, as I mentioned before, I will introduce the project for all of you to have some context. Okay, then I will provide some inputs about what we are expecting from the experiments and what we are offering to those selected for funding. And then we will go in more detail about the process of the application and the main documents that you have to upload to submit to the open call. And finally, we will open the floor to the question for the audience, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Okay. So before starting with the presentation as such, just a few practical rules. Of course, as usual, all of you are muted during the session. But as Martina posted in the chat, you can already ask questions or post comments in the chat. Okay. As mentioned before, we will address all your questions, or at least all your as many questions as possible during the Q&A time after our presentations. But if not possible, we will try to answer by email, or we will upload to the Q&A section of our webpage those questions that will not be answered. If you need or you want to do so, we can also give the floor to some of you if you want to ask personally. Okay. In any case, the webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the YouTube channel of the project. Okay. So I will, as I mentioned before, I will provide you with some information about the project EUHubs4Data. So here you have some facts about the project. It has been funded under this call, DT ICT 05, Data-Driven Innovation Hubs, and more specifically, this project under subtopic 1, which is about the creation of the Federation of Data-Driven Innovation Hubs. The project started last December, so we have been running for 4 months and a half, and the duration of the project is 3 years. An important issue about the project, as you can see here, the budget is more than 12 million euros, but more than half of this budget is going to be devoted to give support to SMEs and startups. And this open call and this experiment is part of these activities. So again, more than half of these 12 millions is for giving support to users of the services of the Federation for SMEs and startups. Also important is that this is just the first open call. We are running 2 other open calls during the project, and the dates of these open calls are in the guidelines for applicants, but I encourage all of you also to stay tuned to our channels during the project, because again, we are organizing two more open calls. So here you can see the main objectives of the project, but two words that you will hear during the presentation and also during the experiments, if they are selected, is two words. First is cooperation and collaboration. This project is the whole project is about collaboration. In the one hand is collaboration between the different hubs involved in the project, and there you can see the 12 DIHs that now are part of the federation. The 12 data-driven innovation hubs. And again, we are going to collaborate among us to provide more refined support and services to the users, but it's also about collaboration with other stakeholders in the project. But also it's about to contribute to the creation of these common European data spaces that we will mention later on. Here I have highlighted in bold letters the objectives of the project that are more aligned with the experiments and with the activity that we are presenting today. As I mentioned before, the contribution to the establishment of these common European data spaces, but also the creation of innovative product and solution. And here is where you come in place, okay, to help us to create those innovative products and services and solutions through data sharing and cross-boundary services, but also to guarantee the impact and visibility to attract end users. And this is what we are doing today. And with those activities to attract users to use and to adopt the solution of our federation, our services, our data sets, and so on. So at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is to establish as a reference in Europe for cross-border data-driven innovation and experimentation. Okay. Here, I want to highlight this double dimension of the project, and you can see here that you as end user, SMEs and startups fits in some of those dimensions. On the one hand, we try to bring together the offer side and the demand side. So again, the offer side is represented by the DIH in the project. So we want to bring together our services, data sets, tools, and make them accessible to all of you, to leverage results from other European initiatives, and also to develop among us interoperability models. And you guys in the demand side, our idea is to bring this offer closer to our ecosystem and to the SMEs in our different ecosystem, to support SMEs in the adoption of data-driven technologies, and again, and finally, to provide financial support during the project in the form of cascade funding and technical and business support. And I will go in detail in this question during the presentation. But also the project has a double dimension in terms of European and regional dimension, because this is an European project and all of us are European initiatives that we are bringing together our assets. But at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is to make all these offers accessible at regional level. Okay. So the idea is also to reach SMEs in Europe in different regions and support you in the journey of digitalization based on data analytics. Here I want to emphasize the 6 pillars of the project. So the starting point is the 12 DIH that I mentioned before, but the idea is to complement this group with new DIH during the project. So the idea is to include in this federation up to 18 more DIH during the project, okay? But also to link with other relevant European initiatives to build a whole community about the federation, about the project. So the 4th pillar is the offer, and the offer is also part of the open call and part of the experiment, because the offer consists of our catalog, our federated catalog that includes data-driven services and also data sets. The 5th pillar is the demand, and here the demand is about all of you. Our idea is to attract also demand to our assets, and to do that we rely in these 3 open calls that I mentioned before, to attract end user to adopt and use the services that we are developing and we are offering. And finally, the future. The project for us aims to be just a starting point of a long-lasting federation that will, let's say, survive after the project. So for that, we are trying to elaborate a sustainability model, exploitation and business model to rule the federation once the project is done. Here I have highlighted some specific objectives that we want also to achieve with the open call and the experiments, of course. And this is what we are doing now, and with all these activities to attract end users and to create awareness of our activities and our services and our assets also, but also to support SMEs and startups in the creation of these innovative data-driven solutions and services, as I mentioned before. But also I want you in the experiments to foster collaboration among the DIH in the federation. This is why And I will come back to this point later in the presentation. This is why each experiment has to include at least 2 services from 2 different DIH, because we want to foster this collaboration among the different DIH of the Federation. But also, during the experiment, we will check the user satisfaction of the people involved in the experiments, because our idea is also to use the experiments to improve our service delivery. Okay, so more and more we will try to improve the delivery based on our experience from the open calls, the experiments, and so on. But our idea is that your participation in the ecosystem is not finished with the open call and the experiments, but that you keep coming to our ecosystem and also be part of our activities. And finally, and this is a more, let's say, European objective, is to contribute to the creation of European common data spaces. Okay, so this was about generally about the project, and I will go a little bit more in detail about what we are looking for and what we are offering in the experiment. So first, I have summarized in three aspects we are expecting from the experiments. So first one, it is mandatory that the experiments make use of the assets of the Federation. The second point is that the experiments have to result in innovative data-driven solutions, products or services, but those services have to be very close to, or at least close to the market, because we want for you to present those results in the form of key exploitable results. And finally, the third important point is that the experiments have to contribute to the creation of European common data spaces. I don't know if you are aware of that, but the European Commission published in February, March last year, the European data strategy that involves the creation of these European common data spaces. Of course, we are not expecting for you to read this strategy, but we will give you some guidelines in the sense and to show how the experiments could contribute to the creation of these European common data spaces. So going more into detail in each of these 3 points. So the first one is the use of services from the federated catalog. As I mentioned before, this is one of the aspects that is required in the experiments. So the first point, as you can see here, it's mandatory that each experiment should include 2 services from the federated catalog provided at least by 2 different DIH. Okay, to this end, let me go to the web page of the project. So hopefully you can see in my screen now the web page of the project. Here you have the different menus. So if you go to the catalog, here you can see that there's an option which is services. Okay, so here in this menu in services, you have access to all the services of the Federation. So here you can filter by type of the service, you can filter by country, and you can filter by language. And if you click on each of the services, you will go to the whole description of the service. So here you can see that more information is provided. Also, if this service has a special access condition, prerequisites, and also some of the services provide a use case or examples to give you an idea how you can apply or include this service in your experiment. Also, it's important, each service includes here the DIH who is providing this service. So if you need more information, you have here several options. Of course, you can always fill in this questionnaire, and we will answer your inquiry about this service. But you can also go to the hub who is providing the service, and here you will find all the information about the hub, but also contact detail for each hub if you want to address them directly and to ask for more information about the service. Also, in the description of the hub, you can hear all the services that the hub is providing in this catalog, but also the data sets. So again, just to summarize this point, again, you have to include in your experiment 2 services, at least 2 services provided by different DIH. And here again in the web page, you have all the information about the services. And it is mandatory, okay? And Jorge will provide more information about that later on. If the experiment is not including this condition, 2 services from 2 different DIH, it will not be eligible for funding, okay? Also, it's important that we will also evaluate that the services that you are proposing fit the purpose of your experiment. So it has not to be artificial. Okay, the services that you are selecting have to be useful for actually for the results and to get results from your experiment. And it's also very important that it fits the description of the experiment. Again, if you have any doubt regarding the services, and if you want more information about each of the services you aim to include in the description, you can contact directly the DIH. You can either you can contact the DIH, send us the questionnaire, or use this email address to ask for more information. Another important aspect, which is for the description of the experiments, is the data sets. Okay. And this is not mandatory, it's just optional that you include data sets from the catalog to the experiments. Again, it's optional, but it's valuable for the experiment. So if you include more data sets, it will be evaluated better. And in the same way, if you go to the webpage of the project, in the section catalog, you will see here the data sets, and the data sets are following the same approach. So you will have here the whole list of data sets, and you can filter by different options. If you go to each of the data sets, if you click on each of the data sets, you will find here the whole description of the data set. And also, again, if you want more information, you can fill out the questionnaire, check the DIH, or just go to us through the email, this email address. Also important, as I mentioned before, is valuable to include data sets from the catalog, but it's also important if you bring your own data sets to experiment, okay? Because at the end of the day, and I will mention later on, if we want to contribute to these European common data spaces, what we want to do is to mobilize data, either data from our catalog or data from your own catalog or your own assets, because at the end of the day, what we want to do is just to mobilize data. So again, it is important, it's optional, but it's valuable from the experiment. Also, it's very important that in the application form, you include the link to the proposed service and data set. So here you have the link, okay? So in the experiment, in the application of the experiment, you just you have to copy the link and paste the link in the form, because by doing so, it will be easier for us to identify what services and what data sets you are including in the experiment. So this is about the first aspect of the experiments. The second aspect is the outcomes from the experiment. As I mentioned before, we want that the results of your experiment consist of innovative services, product, and solution based on our own offer, data services and data sets. But it's important that the TRL, the technology readiness level is very high, and close to the market, because we are trying that the result of your experiments impact in a very positive way in the results of your organization and also in your portfolio. So for us, it's also important that again, the result of the experiments are close to market, high TRL, and also again, impact in your organization and try to improve your portfolio and your catalog. So we want to see tangible benefits from your company, from your organization, from the experiments. And finally, the third pillar, the third aspect of the experiments is, again, to contribute to these common European data spaces. As I mentioned before, we are not expecting from you to know all this strategy from the Commission. But if you follow those rules that we are mentioning in this slide, all of us will be contributing to this European common data spaces. So first, it is needed that your experiments are related to one of the specific sectors highlighted by the Commission as strategic sectors for the European economy, which are health, manufacturing, agriculture, finance, mobility, Green Deal, energy, public administration, and skills. So I guess that those 9 sectors cover most of the activity in the European economy. So by doing so, we will be contributing again to this strategy. The second point is that take this strategy as reference to highlight your challenges. Okay, and we already have mentioned in the guidelines in the guidelines for applicants the main challenges corresponding to each of the sectors. So if you go to our guidelines for applicants, you will see there the main challenges that are related to each of the sector. So try to align the experiment and the description of the experiment in terms of these challenges, and try to contribute to those challenges through the experiment. And also, in order to be more specific, and we are asking for that in the application, provide context, okay, to the experiment, explaining which is the current scenario, which are the actual needs, and how you are expecting to reach or to cover those needs to improve the scenario, and how the impact of the data technology will have in this context. So I guess that following these three rules, all of us will be contributing to this strategy. So this is about what we are expecting from the experiments. Now, what is also important for you is what we are offering, and we have summarized our offer in these six bullets. I will provide more detail in the next slide, but just let me just list one by one. So access to advanced assets on big data, because again, you have to use our services and data sets. Again, you have to use our assets that I mentioned before in the experiments. Technical and business coaching and support from the DIH involved in the experiments. Digital and business skills provided also by the DIH, funding per experiment, 60 key euros per experiment. You will also have visibility and promotion in our channels, but also in the different events that we will organize during the year. And also part of our task in the experiments is to support you in the definition of an exploitation plan regarding your results. As I mentioned before, we are expecting very mature results and very close to exploitation. So we will also help you to define an exploitation plan for your results. So just a bit more detail about each of these aspects. Again, financial support to each of the experiments in the form of a flat rate, okay, 60 euros. Jorge will explain later on with more detail how this support is provided. But in any case, each experiment selected will have this support. You will also have the support of the DIH involved in the experiment, meaning that those DIH whose services are included in the experiment will support you in the implementation, not in the implementation, but in the use of the services on the data sets. One of those DIH will monitor, will coach the experiment, and they will monitor the developing of the experiments, and they will check that the experiment is accomplishing the task, KPIs, and deliverables that you have proposed in the application form. Again, one of those DIH will act as coach of the experiment, which means that there will be the link of the beneficiary with the rest of the federation. And it is important, and it is also mentioned in the guidelines, if needed, okay, you can appoint a DIH not part of the federation for local support, meaning that, for instance, in terms of language or in terms of technical support, you want to appoint a DIH from your side, okay, you can do it, and you have to mention that in the form, and this DIH will be in contact with us. But again, the services will be provided by the DIH part of the federation, and the additional cost of this of the inclusion of this DIH will have to be part of these 60 euros that are flat rate for the experiments. As mentioned before, we will support definition of an exploitation plan, okay, for the result of your experiments, and we will grant visibility at European level using the channels of the project EUHubs4Data, but also at regional level by means of the channels of the regional DIH. And that's it from my side. Now I will give the floor to my colleague Jorge, who will explain a little with more detail
Yeah. Daniel, if you don't mind, before Jorge starts, because we have two questions that are more on your presentation and what you just mentioned. So maybe we can tackle those very quickly, and then Jorge can start on the process.
Of course.
So there's one question from Yara on whether the data sets are all cleaned and structured, so ready to use, or the project has to structure the data before using it.
Yeah, it is a good question. Actually, the data sets that we have included in our catalog are public or semi-public data sets. So in principle, they have to be clean. But in any case, if you include the data sets in the experiments, of course, you will have the support of the DIH if it is necessary to clean or to manage the data set before including the experiments. So summarizing, I'm not completely sure about the situation of the different data sets, but in any case, you will come with the support of the DIH in the experiment for sure.
And then a second quick question from Pietro, because you mentioned TRL. So he was wondering whether you're looking for projects that are more a TRL of 7 to 8, or what is the approach?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question, and actually, I didn't mention a specific TRL because, well, it will depend very much on the specific experiment. Of course, a TRL lower than 7, for me, it will be very low, and the higher the final TRL is, the better for us. So let's see, between 7 and 9, yes, 7 and 8, 7 and 9 will be starting point 7, final 9 will be nice. Yes.
Okay, I think that was it in terms of question that we have right now. So back to Jorge, actually.
Okay, so I guess you can see my screen.
Yes,
Well,
okay.
I'm trying to explain in a few minutes the most important things about the process of the open calls and the main documents involved in the proposal submission. Well, sorry, this is not going to the next slide. I don't know why. Okay, well, let's start with the process for the application. The first step is to download all kinds of documents you need to apply, which mainly involves the guidelines for applicants and the templates for the application form and the sub-grant agreement. The guidelines for applicants define the general aspects for the 3 open calls of our project, but also the particularities for each open call that will be open along the EUHubs4Data project. The guidelines for the first open call are published and are available at the project webpage. Regarding both templates, it is important that you download both templates to be familiarized with the application form that you must fill online on the F6S platform, and with the sub-grant agreement that you will sign in case your experiment is selected for funding. Well, the second step is to carefully read these documents, especially the guidelines, and in case of doubts, visit the frequent asked questions section of the project website or send us an email to the email that Daniel showed you before, and I will show in the next slides. The third will be to create an account on the F6S platform, which is the online submission platform, the official submission platform. You can decide whether to prepare the application directly on the online form or to prepare it using the template and then just copy and paste to the online form. This will be the step 4. And finally, the step 5 is obviously to click on submit, and obviously before the deadline. Well, regarding the main submission documents, if you take a look at the online form or you download the template for the application form, you will see that some questions of the form involve the submission of specific documents, concretely 3 specific documents. One is the declaration of honor. The other one is the technical KPIs for monitoring the progress of the experiment. And the third one is the commitment to set a registered SME. This last document is only mandatory for applicants that are a group of web entrepreneurs. Well, going one by one. Although the application form should be filled online at the F6S platform, as I said, we have provided you a template where you can prepare your proposal offline. The form, as you can see in this slide, has 32 questions organized in 4 main sections. The administrative questions will not be considered in the evaluation, but are required to be eligible. In fact, there are 2 questions in the administrative section that imply to upload a document. We will go in more detail about both documents in the following slides. And the other questions are organized in 3 main sections: excellence, impact, and implementation. Each section has the same weight on evaluation. And finally, it's important to mention that we have optional questions that I have highlighted in this slide. These questions are not mandatory but to be eligible, but can help you to improve your evaluation. Also, be aware that most of the questions have a description text explaining what we expect from this question, so please read carefully this explanation before answering a question. Well, going through the documents, one of the administrative questions asks for uploading the document called Declaration of Honor. It should be signed by a legal representative of the SME applying to the call, and the Declaration of Honor can be downloaded at the project webpage. It is a declaration where applicants sign that they agree with all terms and conditions of the call and other general clauses. Please remember that it is mandatory to upload this document and should be signed by a legal representative of the call, of the SME to be eligible. Well, the other document to be uploaded in one of the administrative questions is the commitment to set a registered SME. As I said before, this document is only mandatory in the case that applicants are a group of web entrepreneurs. It is a document to specify that in case your proposal is selected for funding, you are committed to set a registered SME in an eligible country because beneficiaries are SMEs. There is a template for this commitment annexed as Annex 3 of the Subgrant Agreement template that you can download from the project webpage. Please use it to prepare this document. Here in the slide, you can see this template of the commitment to set a registered SME. Obviously, as I said, SMEs that are already registered are not required to upload this document. Well, finally, all applicants are expected to upload the document expected KPIs. It is a document where each applicant should propose a set of technical KPIs and expected values that will be used for monitoring the progress of their experiment. Applicants should propose a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 KPIs. For this document, there is also a template available on the project webpage, and here you can see the link. This is a very important document since the funding is results-driven, which means that payment on each justification period will be done according to the accomplishment of the defined KPIs. So if you achieve the expected KPIs, you will receive the funding. Therefore, it is important to set achievable KPIs, but since it will be part of the evaluation criteria, KPIs should be also ambitious for increasing your chances in evaluation. If an experiment is selected for funding, before the signature of the Subgrant Agreement with the coordinator of the project, the DIHs involved in the experiment may propose modifications on the expected KPIs proposed by the applicants. It may happen only if DIHs consider that there are other KPIs that will help to better monitor the execution and the impact of the experiment. Well, once we have revised the main submission documents, we are going to give some recommendations as good practices to try to write a winning proposal. The first recommendation is to start the preparation of the proposal early, to take the necessary time to think on suitable experiments that fit the call conditions. So it is important to think on how your experiment can be unique, innovative, and ambitious. So take your time to think on that. Also, it is important to make sure you understand the open call conditions and requirements. So read carefully the documents, mainly the guidelines for applicants, but also review the whole catalog of services to find the most appropriate for your experiment. As Daniel showed before, you can go through the project webpage and review all the catalog of services. Once you have a clear idea about your experiment, it is important to think on how to explain the context, the current test scenario as the starting point, and the expected scenario once the experiment finishes. Also, another recommendation is to think as an evaluator. It is important that you make an effort to explain the key unique things of your proposal. Be aware that evaluators will not read any other source of information apart from your form. Finally, the last recommendation is to define an ambitious but achievable experiment that could be developed in 9 months. Be aware that experiments has a duration of 9 months. Well, another thing that can help you in rating a winning proposal is to bear in mind the evaluation criteria. Here, it is an example of how questions regarding the impact section are related to the evaluation criteria for this section. Therefore, reading the evaluation criteria may help you to think on what and how you should respond to each question. The evaluation criteria for each section of the form is public and can be found in the guidelines for applicants. Finally, here you can find some frequent errors for each section. That regarding the frequent errors in the administrative section, although are obvious, we would like to remind you that the deadline is unchangeable and that you should fill all questions that are mandatory to be eligible and upload all required documents using the official templates. Regarding the excellence section, one of the main common errors is to provide a short explanation about the concept of the experiment, the added value, or the proposed innovation. Don't assume that evaluators know your specific contest. As I said before, the form is the only source of information that the evaluators will read regarding your experiment. On the impact section, it is really important to demonstrate that your experiment is ambitious but realistic. To this end, we recommend quantifying. Quantify the expected performance, quantify the added value compared to competition, and quantify the expected impacts of the experiment. You can quantify using exact numbers or even using percentages to specify an increase or reduction of any indication compared to the state of the art or compared to competition. And finally, the impact section is your opportunity to convince evaluator that you can materialize your experiment. So think on a convincing work plan that could be achieved in 9 months. Define the appropriate KPIs to monitor the progress of the experiment and the deliverables that will be sent to justify the accomplishment of these KPIs. And finally, try to demonstrate that you have the necessary expertise to carry out the work plan. Well, going through the process after submitting the application, this figure summarizes the whole process from when we receive the application until the beneficiaries receive the funds. The first step we will do is to perform an initial filtering of proposals, checking that the applicants are eligible and the proposal fulfill all the submission requirements. After this initial filtering of proposals, the external experts will perform the remote evaluation according to the evaluation criteria that we have included in the guidelines for applicants. Once we receive the evaluation of the external evaluators, we will order the experiment by rank, and we will propose for funding the ones with higher rank until covering the funds for each call. For example, in the first open call, we can grant up to 10 experiments. So the 10 with higher rank will be proposed for funding. However, since each DIH has a number of maximum experiments that they can support in each call, we have to check that the selected DIHs are still available in this open call for each experiment selected for funding. Well, what I mean, for example, is that if a DIH that has a maximum support for this first call of 2 experiments, and among the 10 selected for funding, 3 of them has been selected a service from this DIH, the one with less rank cannot be funded this way because the DIH has reached its maximum support with the 2 with higher rank. However, we will try to find an alternative before rejecting a well-evaluated experiment. So in this case, we will check if the service from this DIH can be provided by other DIH that has not covered their maximum support for this call, or even if other DIH can provide a similar service that may fit the experiment conditions. So we will try to make an agreement between all parts and fund the experiment after performing the necessary updates on the application form, because the application form will be included in the grant agreement that will be signed with the coordinator. Once we finish with all this procedure, the selected experiments will be required to sign the subgrant agreement with the coordinator of the EUHubs4Data, and then the experiment will start. Regarding the payments, beneficiaries will be paid only by achieving the expected results. This means that funding will depend on the accomplishment of the specific KPIs rather than justifying invoices or personnel dedication. We will not request that kind of things, that administrative things that like invoices or personnel dedication. There will be 2 justification periods. One at month 5, the intermediate review, and the other at month 10, once the experiment is finished. As commented before, the KPIs for monitoring the success of the experiments will be proposed by applicants in the application form, but their proposal may be revised by the DIH involved in the experiment before the subgrant agreement signature. At each justification period, beneficiaries must send at least 1 deliverable justifying the accomplishment of the expected results, I mean the technical KPIs. The DIH involved in the experiment will be in charge of reviewing this deliverable. And if they set a positive assessment, the beneficiary will receive the grant. So at the end, the grant, as I said before, depends only on achieving or accomplishment the specific the technical KPIs. No by justifying invoices or personal dedication. This is really important. And finally, here is the calendar for the first open call. The deadline is the 8th of February, and then we will communicate results about April, and finally the selected experiments will start on May. So please remember to apply before the 8th of February. And I think that that's all. And if you have any questions, you can ask now, or you can contact us by this email. So Martina, I open the floor for questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Jorge. I was checking, there was one question from Alisa, but I think it's more for Daniel. It concerns the, and I'm not sure, Alisa, I understand entirely the question. So she asks whether the data, is there is any indication of the variety, volume, variability and reliability of the data, but she mentioned to be provided. So I'm not sure, maybe there is a confusion here, but Daniel, you can maybe elaborate on the data.
Well, I think that she means about if they are going to bring data to the experiment, if there are any requirements about those data.
Okay, perfect.
And I think this is the question. And actually, the answer would be no, as long as those data complement the experiment are needed for the experiment. Of course, we are talking now about big data, and but in any case, we will understand that probably in some cases. We're not talking about terabytes or petabytes, but it will be enough. I don't know. It will depend on the experiment, and again, as long as the data are required for the experiment and complement the description, for us it will be okay.
So then we have two other questions. Thank you very much, Daniel. There is indeed in the presentation that we uploaded, it was from the previous information session, and there is the old deadline for the call, it appears. So the correct deadline is the 8th of February. Let's make it very, very clear. Mm-hmm. So please disregard what is in the presentation. We will upload a new presentation and correct that. And then there is a question that I think is more for Jorge about the concept of maximum support for a digital innovation hub.
Well, the maximum support for the digital innovation hubs that are participating in this first open call is published in the guidelines for applicants. There is a section which specifies each DIH their maximum support, and it's really simple. For example, a DIH has a maximum support of 2 experiments. That means that they can support services up to 2 experiments in this open call. And if, as I said before, if 3 experiments select a service from this DIH, the one with less rank cannot be funded this way. So cannot the DIH cannot support 3 if they have a maximum support of 2. So we have to check that, because if among the 10 experiments selected for funding, most of them use services or propose to use services from one DIH, it cannot be done this way, because we want to have a distributed use of services among the federation.
Yeah, if may add something, yes, the reason for that is that the DIH in the project have pre-allocated some budget for experiments. Okay, of course we could manage some deviation from this budget, but at the end of the day, as Jorge mentioned, we have to keep the balance between the different DIH. So this is why we are providing these maximum experiments per DIH. So again, some deviation will be allowed, but not so much. So this is basically the reason for that.
And as I said in the presentation, we will try to find an alternative if that occurs in a well-evaluated experiment. And you can find the maximum support for each DIH for this call in the guidelines for applicants. So please read carefully the guidelines for applicants, because here you will find most of the responses for all your questions. If not, you can always contact us at this email.
Super, thank you very much. We have another couple of questions. So one from Francesca on whether there is a list of proposal projects already submitted so that experiments are not replicated. But I think that Francesca, this is the first call that we're having right now. So we don't have a list of projects already funded. So I don't know, Daniel, and if you want to elaborate on that, but there's no list we can share, I'm afraid.
No.
Yeah, that's
not
right.
at this time. As soon as we have the first round of experiments approved, we will publish the description of the experiments in our webpage. But again, as you mentioned, Martina, this is the first open call, and we don't have any experiments now in our pipeline.
Okay. So then we have another question from Yuri. So can you please expand on the initial TRL requested, and what do you mean by experiment?
What do we mean by experiment? Well, I think I explained in one of my slides. So in our case, we are looking for experiments that first make use of our assets, okay, our services and or data sets, and that you use those assets to evolve some of your services, some of your concepts, some of your ideas to a higher TRL and come and find and end up with something very close to the market. So we are trying to help because at the end of the day, we are a experimentation and innovation ecosystem. We are not research. So this is why we are asking for high TRLs. Okay, so we want to contribute to, we want to provide you with an environment to innovate and experiment, and based on the use of our assets to help you to evolve your solution to a let's say closer status to the market. I know that this is a bit back, okay, but I think this is also an advantage for you because we are leaving the floor open to different type of experiments as long as again they meet those requirements. Use our assets, end up with key exploitable results close to the market, and fit the guidelines about the European Common Data Spaces that we are saying in the guidelines. Fit to those challenges in each of the sectors, and propose something aligned with that. About the TRL, again, I mentioned before 7 and 9. Okay, 9 is operational so available in an operational environment. Of course, we will review depending on the experiment, but between 6, 7 starting point, 8, 9 final end point could be nice. I don't know, Luigi, if I answer your. It was Luigi. If I answer your question.
I think it was not Luigi, actually, it was Yuri.
Yuri, yeah.
But then we have now indeed a question from Luigi, who is a bit elaborated because it's specific to their situation. So I don't know, Daniel, if you want me to read it aloud or you want to read it aloud.
Yeah, I can. So we are a team coming from university, large consumer products in EU countries. This kind of approach line with the call. Well, I would need more information. In principle, yes. So yes, because again, it is about data. It is about mobilizing data. It is about contributing to the establishment of these European Common Data Spaces. But so in principle, I would say yes. Of course, you don't have active customers, but at least you can make an effort to identify potential customers. So maybe it should improve your application. But in principle, I would say yes. It fits the approach of it fits the concept of our approach. Yes.
But of course, if Luigi wants to elaborate more their questions and send us an email, he's welcome to do it.
Okay, so then we have a question from Doug. So he asks about the size of an SME. So what's the definition in terms of employees and?
Well, the definition is in the guidelines for applicants, and it's based on the definition that the European Commission gives, and it's 250 personnel. But I'm trying to find it in the guidelines for applicants to read it like it's written, but it's 250 personnel.
Yeah, full-time employees. So it's less than 250 FTEs. Correct.
Yeah, headcount in annual work unit less than 250, and annual turnover less or equal to 50 millions, or annual balance sheet total less or equal to 43 million. That's what the European Commission says about an SME.
Super. Is there any other question that we have not addressed that I forgot? Because maybe there were other questions that popped up. I think we addressed them all, but maybe we can give a couple of minutes more to see if there is anything else. Otherwise, in the meantime, just to let you know that indeed we will post the recording of this session, because we have been asked by several people, so that will be available soon. You will also receive a follow-up email with some links to the material in case you want to check that.
Yes, and of course, again, we have mentioned several times during the presentation the different channels that you have to contact with us. So if you have any doubt, don't hesitate to use any of that to contact with us. And if needed, we will also forward your inquiry to the DIH involved, so they can answer with more detail about the services and the data sets if needed. And again, as Jorge mentioned before, the application form is quite exhaustive, so the sooner you start working on that, the better for the quality of your applications. And again, you have still almost 1 month, so you have time, but yeah, be ready for that. And we are here to support you on that. Okay, so there are different channels, and you can contact us whenever you want. Okay. It seems that Martina, we don't have any other question.
I think we can close the call probably.
Yes, so we can close the call. I think in that case, it seems that everything was very clear. So first, I would like to thank yourself, Martina, and Jorge, for your support and your effort in this presentation, but also to thanks all of you for your interest, your time, and your contribution to the discussion. I would like to wish you luck in your application process. So again, contact us if you have any other question, and also remind you that the project just started. Okay, so we will be there for 3 years, and we are organizing two more rounds of open call. So stay tuned to our channels and keep in touch with us. Okay, for anything you need.
Thanks a lot. I have a last second question on where to find the application form template. I'm just posting the link to the website in case it helps.
Yeah, in the project website, you will find all kind of templates for all the documents you need, and also the link for the F6S platform. That it's where you should fill the online form to apply to the open call. So you will find all there.
Yes, all the information is there. Again, if you have any doubt, just contact us by the different channels. So again, thanks all for your time, for your attention, and for your questions. And again, I wish you the best luck for your applications. And that's it. Thanks all for our site, and have a nice day, all of you.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye.